Too many times we stand aside and let the water slip away. Till what we put off to tomorrow has finally come today. So don't stand upon the shoreline and say you're satisfied. Choose to chance the rapids and dare to dance the tide. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Maxwell Ivy, known around the world as The Blind Blogger, and you can find me at theblindblogger.net, where you can purchase my books, including the latest one, The Blind Blogger's New York City Adventures, How You Can Make Your Dreams Come True. And today I'm doing an interview. I'm having another great guest on the show. His name is Jonathan. I'm ashamed to admit I don't know his last name, but I'm kind of a first name kind of person unless I need to know their last name. And he is known as the Funky Thinker. He has the Funky Thinkers podcast. And he's really wanting to help us look at our problems in a different way and hopefully come up with some new solutions or at least some new questions. And I like what it says on his LinkedIn page about there are millions of people trying to figure out this online stuff. They're all trying to tell you, take their course and you'll be a rock star. Take their pill and you'll be able to eat whatever you want and not feel guilty about it. Or many other claims that we've all heard, and most of them we just, we know they're not true, but we still listen. And I love that how he just invites people to come to his website, check out some of his shows, because he believes that once you watch them, you'll be hooked, and then who knows where you all will go together. So, Jonathan, welcome to What's Your Excuse, and how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I hope you don't ask me to sing, because, people will be flocking to the exit kind of straight away. I mean, you'd be straight down the tube, Max.
No. I have been known to put guests on the spot, but I've never asked one to sing.
No.
But now that you've put the idea in my mind,
No, I'm gone. Finish. That's it. Done. Finish. You're done. Laters.
Well, I only do it because once upon a time it was the only answer to the question of I don't have an intro for a podcast. I don't have the money or the time to hire somebody to do one for me. So what can I do to start my show? And it was like, one of the original happy accidents that I did it once. People liked it. I kept doing it. And now my speaking coach is like, Max, every time you give a public talk, you got to sing. And I'm almost to the point where I think people want to hear me sing more than they want to hear me talk, which is a scary proposition as a speaker and a coach.
That's good, because you've got something that people talk about being unique, right?
Yeah.
But I've never come across anybody that sings as an introduction to their show. So, and that straight away, you've got that kind of, like me, you've got kind of a distinctive accent. Well, you have to me, hello there, Jonathan, that kind of thing. And it's you, right? It's authentic. It's you.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for coming on the show and for doing this last minute. For those of you who don't know, me and Jonathan, we've known each other for a while. I've been on his show twice. I was feeling in kind of a funk because I couldn't get off of zero and record the next episode of What's Your Excuse. And Jonathan said, hey, Max, what do you say we do this on Monday or Tuesday and we'll get you going again? So me and Jonathan, we're doing this kind of cold. We know each other. I think we're going to have a great conversation, but I'm going to depend on you to tell the people all about yourself, and we'll go from there.
Well, I must admit, I like the idea that you don't know my name, but then again, being blind, why would you? I mean, I love that kind of thing. So quite a long story short, was looking a few years ago, I was looking around for something to become unique about, and one of my lads do you have Guinness Book of Records, Max, over there?
I'm sorry, what?
You have the Guinness Book of Records.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have the Guinness Book of Records. It's originally from over where you're from, but we have them here.
Yeah, so one of my lads got that for a Christmas present, and at that time I was doing webinars and webinar consulting and stuff, and I looked in it and I thought, I wonder if there's a record for the most number of people on a webinar, and it turns out it's 36,000 and something, and I thought, no, that's not going to happen. Because it was a student thing, right? And so then I looked, and there's a world record for the longest webinar, right? And I thought that's doable, that, and it's 36 hours and a few minutes. And if Susan Baroncini is listening, who still holds the record, well done. It is harder than you think. So I thought that's doable, right? And what I didn't realize is that if you want the Guinness man like you see on TV to show up with the blazer and the stopwatch and the clipboard and looking all smart and official, you've got to pay. And we got quoted like a 5-figure sum per day, plus expenses for the guy to show up. So when you look at it on TV, all you actually seeing is just a TV show, right? You know, kids skipping and stuff like that. Somebody's paid for that to be on TV.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so if you want, so if you see like the guy stood there with the clipboard, and yes, that is a world record, right? That's money, and there'll inevitably be a bank or somebody bankrolling the whole thing, right? So if you don't want to do that, you've got to provide, in their words, evidence of what you've done, and this can be in this whole video and audio and all that stuff. And if I said the word scrounging, would you know what that means?
Oh yeah. I'm a good Carney kid. I know the word scrounge.
Yeah. So for people that maybe I don't know if that's a local thing or not. It's kind of like good-natured begging. So
yes.
I went around, and I said, you want to be on a 36-hour webinar. It's going to go from 10 o'clock Tuesday morning till 10 o'clock Wednesday night. And after a while, people got put into two sets of, sometimes before they even open their mouth, they got put into two categories of person. The first category of person says, what, you're going to stay up all night and not go to bed and talk to people all around the world? Why would you want to do that? And the second category of person said, what, you're going to stay up all night and not go to bed and talk to people all around the world? I want to be in. What can I do? I want to be in. That's cool.
Yeah.
And so long story short, again, we failed in the record attempt because we didn't provide remote footage of the speakers like you guys, video of you guys. So a bit annoying to get yanked by a technicality, but I got that some people are quite happy taking the paycheck, be they a business owner or an employee or whoever they are, they're quite happy taking the paycheck, punching the card, doing whatever, and then zoning out at the weekend. The second category of person, who I didn't realize at the time, they want to look at something innovative and different, and they want to, what can I learn from this? Can I listen to somebody in a different country and maybe pick up a different idea? And it took me about 3 months to come up with the phrase funky thinkers. And the first idea, by the way, I can't remember what it was, but when I Googled it, it was a Prince Harry mental health charity. So I thought, I don't want to be really going head to head, with him.
No.
So it became Funky Thinkers, and it became a group of people that are quite happy to look at things in a different manner. Example, before we started hanging around, I had no idea about how a blind person would use the internet or Facebook or YouTube or something like that. And the first time we spoke, I think I said, have you seen that program Blind Date? And well, I don't think you just ignored me. And I just thought, well, of course he hasn't seen it. He's blind. But that's how we speak. And it made me kind of like aware of different things and different people's views on life. And, if you're going to hang around, most businesses fail, right? But most businesses hang around. And like you said in your introduction, we know it's not true. We still listen. We follow the same old gurus, and we follow the same old advice, and we follow the same old. And we know that these people that hang around on LinkedIn are multi-millionaires, but we still follow what they say. So they became a group of fun. It turned into a podcast where, as you know, everybody gets the same questions, the same oddball questions, which I'll maybe give you an example of later on. But that's the thing. Rather than doing what everybody else does, and most businesses, like I said, most businesses fail.
Right.
We don't follow the lemmings off the cliff. We look at things a little bit differently. So we'll maybe get into some of that as we get along. I'll have a drink of water.
Right. Well, I'm talking with Jonathan from funkythinker.com, and he does, in my opinion, you do challenge your guests. I'm not sure what the audience thinks of us, but you do either ask different, unusual questions, or you ask them in a way that people wouldn't expect. And to me, as a host, because it takes a little bit different mindset to be the guest than it does to be the one asking the questions. To me, the real difference between a good host and an average host, or a great one and an average one, is the follow-up question. Is where do they go from after they hear your answer to the question that they plan to ask you?
Yeah, and I let me just tell you that a while back, somebody sent me a podcast, and I don't listen to many because I just don't. And the guy said, "Can you get past 10 minutes listening, and then can you tell me anything that the speaker has said, anything at all?" And it was dirgeful. It was okay. Now I have got Max, and Max is a blind blogger, and tell us about your life, Max. And 10 minutes later, and then my uncle Jesse said this, and I just thought I'd imagine the host kind of playing on the phone, playing like a little game on his phone, is that guy still going on? And you've got to think that nobody cares what you know, and they want to know who you are, because that's generally more interesting. We can find out all about you from your website if you've done it right. And so somebody turned up and said, there's a rock group called Rush. Have you heard of them? I said, no. They said they recorded a track called Show Me, Don't Tell Me. And that, if you look at all gurus online, they're telling you, you can do this if you just do that. And you eat my pills and you'll be this, like you said, rock star. They're telling you. They're not showing you.
Yeah.
They're not showing you. Okay. And by only asking oddball questions, like we'd talk about if we went out for a Starbucks, me and you, we'd get talking about all kinds of random nonsense. That's what people are interested in, and that's showing people who we are.
Yeah, and I was actually looking for some of your past show titles, and that one actually did jump out at me. Show Me, Don't Tell Me, and I think how it applies to me personally, that a lot of people will tell me that they appreciate what I'm doing, they find me inspiring, but they don't want me to. They don't want to ask me for actual help, suggestions, or advice on what they're doing, but they do appreciate what I'm doing. And so to me, I've kind of learned that the best thing I can do for people is just to keep showing up and keep giving the example, keep doing the work, and let them see, what we do out here every day. Let them see us putting the effort into a weekly podcast in your case, and I think you're up to 2 shows now, that people are much more willing to follow our work and our example than they are to listen to what we have to say.
Yeah, and you think about you've got two podcasts to listen to, right? One guy's going to say, hey, you've got to do all this stuff, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. I mean, I've got one episode that's going to go live in the next day or so, where we just randomly, for 2 minutes, just kicked around an idea. We came up with a book title and a domain name. I can tell you what it is, actually. It's blupo.com. Some kind of typo type mistake searching service. Blupo. I don't know if you use that. We use blooper is like a mistake.
Okay. So Blue Pro.
Bloopo. B-L-O-O-P-O. Bloopo.
Blupo. Okay.
A mistake or a mistake finding service. And that's more valuable than, hey, you've got to get all these things in a row and do all these complicated steps, and and that's how ideas come around. Nothing important happens when you start off with a file new Word document. To me, like I said, Funky Thinkers took 3 months to come up with. Just right now, is it this? Is it that? Is it this? And we got a piece of paper and pencil, and we got, the old thing of stuff all over the wall and that. We wanted 2 words which described what it is, it describes what you're going to get, it describes a desirable outcome, and that's what I try to get, across in the thing, that but you're not going to get the secrets to the Magic Kingdom by buying something off Amazon or buying something off some blogging guru. You ain't going to get that. You're only going to get it by your own unique, because everything can be, Funky Thinkers will be copied at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, my brother recently told me that there are computers now that are producing what some call works of art even. So
no, I mean the concept. I mean the idea of the concept.
Yes.
When I started the Funky Thinkers podcast, I had no idea what it would. I had no idea what a Funky Thinker was, apart from I didn't have a syllabus. I didn't have a. I just wanted to get people on the phone and get some viewpoints. And what is coming through loud and clear is that people are fed up with social media. They're fed up with plastic people. They're fed up with gurus. They want good old-fashioned talking in Starbucks. They want to go out and hang around. And we see things like LinkedIn Local, which has not quite made it over here. They're making an absolute comeback because people want to hang out with real. They miss that human connection.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I love you sharing how you came up with the Funky Thinker. And I think the most important thing you just said there was you didn't really have any idea of what it would be or how it would be. I mean, you didn't start off with any ideas of this is what it should be or this is what it should not be. And a lot of people, they really they rob themselves of great ideas because they start off with a whole bunch of ideas of what they have to have or what their business needs to do without just thinking about, okay, what is it that we want to do? How, what do we want to be, and working through that whole process. So I appreciate you sharing that because that's going to give people who watch this a lot of freedom to say, I don't have to come up with that business plan in 24 hours, or I don't have to come up with my brand name overnight. And so I appreciate you sharing that. That's
I would say if it's worthwhile as well, that it's actually harder than you think because I wanted 2 words where the .com is not taken, where it's
right.
where it's not a trademark, and there's no what I call Headspace competitors. I think Headspace was the Prince Harry thing. He'd got something .org, but the .com was free. So there's the kind of the Google. You type in Headspace, you're going to see a picture of Prince Harry or whatever.
Right.
So it is hard, and you think, oh yeah, we got it, but and I'd got a vision in my head of like the '60s, like girls dancing with the hair, the sharp hair, and I went through all that, and it is actually quite hard. I wanted 2 words where the .com was free, where it's not a trademark, and it describes what it is, and that's quite tricky.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you something else, but I can't remember what it was, so we'll have to park that and come. Oh, that was it. That one thing that's come up from all this, like I said, all the people want to get back to that stuff, and I'm perking up when it's on the news about mental health in kids and depression and anxiety and procrastination. They're all internet diseases.
Yeah, there was a woman recently making the rounds with a book where she actually did physical research on people's brains while they were performing different tasks. And she found that people's energy levels and their brain activity went down when they did online type stuff like texting and emails and Facebook, and went up when they did active things. She even found there was a difference between reading an ebook and reading a book where you turn the pages.
Yeah, and curiously enough, I don't ask the question anymore because the questions that I ask kind of change because they get a bit staid. One of the questions was, what do you do when you're traveling? Do you read books, stare out the window, or whatever? And I would say that most people said reading, and most people that have been on the show said real books, which is so paperbacks, hardbacks, whatever, newspapers, rather than some kind of electronic device. Now, I've said a couple of times that it seems like we're almost keeping the print publish industry going. Maybe it's the kind of people that I attract to the show. But, if you've got a problem that is caused by the internet, then it would strike me as a bit odd to look to the internet for a solution.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
You've got, there's been a thing on our news today. We have a program called Love Island. Has that made it across to you?
I'm not familiar with it, but that doesn't mean it hasn't made it over.
You don't need to be familiar with it. So what they were saying was that these people that are on this reality TV show they've got 1 million Instagram followers and all that stuff. And then the next thing is about teenage mental health problems in teenage girls. Do you think one's connected to the other? I sure do. Then it's pointless looking for the solution, on Instagram or whatever.
Where all there are on Instagram are pretty people having happy, successful lives with no problems.
Yeah, and what that is it's a filter. And I get some fantastic sound bites off people being on the show. And yeah, Facebook, Instagram, they train us to be unhappy. And 1 in 7 divorce petitions in the US mentions Facebook. It allows women to look at other women and think, I wish that was me. It allows men to look at other women and say, I wish I was there. And it trains us to be unhappy. Because we're unable to filter out stuff. We think that's what good looks like. And it crops up again and again in the show that, people want more than that.
Well, I'm very thankful. I mean, I still sometimes get distracted by conversations on Facebook or news articles online, but I'm very thankful sometimes that I don't have the vision to see all of the millions of images of beautiful, perfect people out there in the world who are doing nothing but hanging out on beaches.
Yeah, and I think that, they say if you've followed as an internet kind of, I don't know what the word he calls himself now, called Clay Shirky, American, and he's an internet strategist, and he says the thing about this is that it doesn't become interesting to study until the technology is ubiquitous, till it's everywhere. So email, right? Email. If you're the only person that's got email in the world, you'd have a pretty dull life.
Right.
If you're the only person that's got Skype, the only other person that's got Instagram. No, if nobody else has got it. And he says, email is now everywhere. Everyone use email for, Max. Everything, right? You buy something, you get a receipt. We organise this by email. You can get confirmation of your order and all that. That's what.
Right.
And photographs have gone the same way. That photographs are everywhere.
This is true. Before, I don't know about you, but one of the best gifts I ever had while I still had some vision was a Polaroid camera. And you could take 12 pictures for $5, which at that time, $5 was a lot of money to most kids or early teenagers. But you could take 12 pictures, and that might be all you would take for a week or two. But now, taking your point, we have people that are taking dozens or hundreds or thousands of pictures a day. Some people even setting up their cameras to take them, even if they're not looking at the camera taking them.
I mean, what it does is it like you said, if it puts no value on it, because if you were a turtle that lived in the sea, and you lived for one of the questions we used to ask was, if you had a magic wand and you could get anything, what would you get? And people would invariably say, endless youth and all that stuff. And then somebody popped up and said, well, actually, that would be quite boring. You imagine that turtle in the sea that I just spoke about, that has lived for 140 years. God, another day. What should I do today? Oh, so boring. And what it does is you don't respect anything, because I'll do that tomorrow. When we know that we've only got so many 75, 85, whatever years in this earth, and after that, we're gone.
Yeah.
So to say that we'll just do this, and photographs are the same. You could only take 12, right? You'd be sure. And we used to, when we were kids, take photographs, and then you have to send it through the post, and then you'd be waiting for the postie every day to send stuff back. Yeah. And you're like, oh, that's good, that's not good. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm keeping that one.
Yeah.
Out of 30 or whatever, 36. And that puts a value on it.
Yes, it does. Whenever I have a conversation about this with people, I always point to Steve Jobs, because there's a guy who twice had cancer, and both times he thought he was going to die. The first time he didn't, the second time he did. One of the most innovative people we've had in the last 100 years. he not only knew his, he not only knew he was a human, that in general our time was limited, but he believed his time was, to be measured in, a year, 3 years, 5 years. And look at all the stuff he accomplished because he did value every minute he had left.
So, that's what I think. And I would say doing the podcast, it allows me, somebody said, how do you keep up with news? You mentioned fake news and all that. You mentioned news. Well, what I find the value in is the 10 minutes before and after we record the show. So, for instance, we met up today and passed the time of day and all that, and we'll probably speak after you've pressed the stop button. But that gives a snapshot into a random. We don't know these people. We've spoke a few times. I get people show up and we've never spoke before. We've exchanged emails. I've looked at their videos or whatever. But you get a snapshot into people's lives and how they view the world and what's happening with them. And then you can go and look, oh yeah, they've mentioned that, and this is happening in my town, we've got this and something other. And that again is helpful, if that's the right word, to start the ideas process. And to start the process of, okay, what can I learn from that person? What's happening in their world? And that type of stuff, rather than just the mainstream media, mass media, force feeding us the same stuff. Bad, because that, like I said, everybody watches that. The opposite of funky thinkers, by the way, are the normalites.
Right. I am speaking with Jonathan from funkythinker.com. And that, what you were just talking about there made me think of something. Me personally, I have no interest of bringing famous people on my podcast. I feel like I'm learning quite a bit by having conversations with people who may be farther ahead on their journey than I am, but nobody's going to confuse them with Michael Jackson or Tom Cruise, because you can learn so much from these conversations. How do you feel? Are there going to be famous people on the Funky Thinker?
Well, a couple of things. The first thing is that if you got Michael Jackson's dead, isn't he?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I don't own a Ouija board, and I don't believe in psychics or other things like that. So no, he's not going to be on the show.
The first thing is that you look at some kind of mega guru, Richard Branson.
Yeah.
A lot of those people made their cash and reputation before the internet, right? So and a lot of what he says is already going to be out there in books and podcasts and stuff like that. So he's not going to reveal anything new. The only thing that you would get from Richard Branson is that it'd be a PR opportunity for him. And that's one of the reasons why everybody gets the same questions, because I used to do a show called Tuesday's Webinar, and a guy showed up and I said, how did you find out about me? And he said, I have a girl in the Philippines on VA or whatever that looks out for podcasts and shows. And I said, okay, and does everybody get the same shtick? He says, yeah. And I just thought, I don't want to be part of his kind of PR machine, or I don't want to be part of his, he's going to go for playing my tent. Remember we said just off mic, just before we started, Max, I'll do whatever you want because I'm in your pitch now. I'm in I'll do whatever you want.
Right.
So, and Richard Branson, if he wanted to be on, he'd get the same question, same as everybody else. Because it would just be a PR, people like that, they don't need PR from the likes of me, but if he did, he'd get the same questions and I'd kind of insist on. That makes it easy for me to, I don't have to think of things to say and all that stuff. And
yeah, that's the other thing is how do you interview Richard Branson and not get a little, I can't ask that question. No, that question's stupid. But I do appreciate what you were saying about how you wouldn't bring anybody any new information. And to me, that points to the fact that both of us are wanting to serve our audiences as opposed to just generate viewers and traffic numbers. Otherwise,
the thing is that a lot of these people, their message is not necessarily different to ours, but you know, if we have a TV show over here called The One Show, and that's BBC One, 7 o'clock Monday to Friday, 7 o'clock at night, Monday to Friday. General magazine, news show, charity, stuff like that.
Our Inside Edition, or
yeah, but it's more lightweight, and you know, if Richard Branson's got something to sell, he just goes on The One Show and talks about it. And can you do that? No. Can I do that? No. and you know, if you look at a website of any of these gurus, it would fail the basic test, the tests that, you know, we would ask of it. You know, is it obvious why I'm here? Is it obvious what problem it solves? No, because the website is only part of the thing. The rest of the thing is they're on TV, they're in the news, they're in the newspapers and all that. So following these people is kind of like a fool's errand, because, you know, people talk about all these LinkedIn gurus, which I'll not name, but, you know, they've got 1.4 billion Twitter followers or whatever, right? What are you going to learn from him? You're just sticking yourself in somebody else's sales funnel.
Exactly, and that's one of the hard lessons that people have to learn about social media is, unless you actually like and respect the famous person, unless you actually want to watch what they're posting, there's no value to me personally to follow one of these top young influencers, because they're almost never going to follow me back. They're almost never going to even retweet or repost anything that I post. So like you say, all I'm doing is padding their numbers and allowing them to charge the advertisers more money for their sales funnel.
Well, I took the step a while back to unfollow a lot of people. Twitter, I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
And if you look at my Twitter, which is @JohnSenior1, then you'll see I follow something like 8 people or 9 people or something. And I've got 4,700 followers. And that's not ego on my part. That's just I don't want to listen to what other people are saying. I can't let that into my head, because I've got enough going on in there without listening to other people's ranking and stuff. And the other thing is that people look at that, you know, lizard brain kicks in. Oh, this guy's good. He's got all these people listening to what he says. So it's all about signal and noise. You know, who's making the noise and who's the signal. So it has that kind of spin-off as well. Whereas you're right, you know, all these kind of young gun kid type gurus, all you're doing is padding their numbers. They don't know you. They don't care about you. So, I mean, that's the kind of hard edge to Funky Thinkers that we social media. You were on the show actually, weren't you? Social media is a cruel trick on business owners. Maybe you should put the link to that underneath. Maybe that might be a helpful.
You know, that's a good idea. That way I can also promote the past appearance on the Funky Thinkers when people look at this. That's a great idea. Yeah. And that's not something that every guest would have thought of. So I got to pat you on the back for that.
The other thing is, you know, I challenge people. When was the last time that, you know, you sat down with somebody and had a conversation? I'm talking probably quite a bit more than what I would do, because that's what you want, right?
That's what I want. Yeah, we're big on long answers and storytelling here on What's Your Excuse. So yeah, we're good.
But you know, when was the last? I challenge the audience to, when was the last time they sat down with somebody who probably wasn't their spouse, you know, or significant other, and had a conversation without a phone or anything making a noise. I mean, we're using technology now, but we're not doing anything. We're not. You know, I'm talking to you, right? I'm looking at you. We've got a camera on, and that's it. There's no. It's like analog FaceTime. Whereas,
as a matter of fact, I don't know about you, but for me, the last thing I do before I do one of these is to turn off all the electronic chatter, because I've got like twice what you do, because not only does my stuff beep and twerk, but it also talks at me. So I got to turn off all that noise and focus on having a conversation. But you're right. Most people don't even do that. Recently, Chick-fil-A challenged some people at their restaurants. They said that if they would come to the restaurant, put their phones and tablets in a box, and do nothing but eat until their meal was over, they'd get their food for free. And very few people were actually able to do it.
There's a guy on the news over here. Somebody booked some family thing, and they went along, you know, daughter's 21st or whatever. They went along 2 or 3 generations, real potential banana skin for being out in public. You know, all got different interests. They go to the restaurant, they all eat. Restaurant owner says, "How was it?" The dad says, "It was terrible." Why? Oh, because all the kids did was twiddle on phones. You know, all grandma did was stare out the window because she wouldn't talk to kids. And so the guy had a blinding flash of the obvious, and he actually charges money. So you go in there, you pay a $5 or whatever. He gets a box with a key, and you all put your phones in this box, and he locks it, sticks it behind the bar, and then guess what? You got to talk to each other. He's booked out months. That's because people want that. People want that discipline. Maybe that's the thing. What people are lacking these days, discipline. Maybe people want the discipline of having the thing took off them because they can't discipline themselves.
This is true. They cannot discipline themselves, so they have to have accountability partners. They have to have devices in their phones, and friends and family members make them do what it is they know they need to be doing.
Yeah, and it's like any kind of. You're familiar with the dopamine type of hit. You know, this stuff is like a powerful drug.
Right.
And, you know, like smoking and drinking and all that stuff. And nobody's written the rule book for this. Nobody's written the social media etiquette rule book.
Well, if there was a book, do you think anybody'd be following it?
No, well, people haven't got patience to read now. It'd have to be a video, wouldn't it?
It'd have to be a video. You're right. But I guess I just lost a bet with my editor because in my last book, which I wrote 2 years ago, I said, you know, maybe somebody should start a chain of no internet cafes. And she's like, "Max, this is a great idea. You should do this." And I told her, I'm not that kind of entrepreneur that I'm going to start up a brick and mortar restaurant somewhere. And she said, "Max, you ought to do this because if you keep talking about it, somebody's going to do it. They're going to get rich off of it." So I just lost a bet with my editor, Lorraine Regularly at wordingwell.com. I don't know what it's going to cost me, but I'll have to pay.
No internet cafe, like it. So, I mean, this is, again, I mean, I was looking at doing one of the things we do in Funky Thinkers is called the Prism, which is like one of these where we just sit around virtually and just help each other solve problems. And I was looking at doing some Prism events, like in hotels. So I went to my local Friendly Neighborhood Facebook local business group and I said, "Hey, I want a hotel with no Wi-Fi. Anybody got one?" And the first person said, like, "Are you nuts?" And the second person said, "Hey, I've got a hotel, or it's super duper 200 zungles fast, this, that." I said, "No, I want a hotel with no Wi-Fi." "Yeah, I've got a hotel. It's got super duper fast, this, that." I said, "No, I want a hotel with no Wi-Fi." And I put it down to the fact that they were normalites who couldn't understand the reason why. They just think, because if you get into that game, you get into you've got to have the right version of this, and you go down the rabbit hole of technology, and that's just a bottomless pit.
Right. They've gotten to the point where they've gotten used to this idea that everybody wants super fast internet. If you don't have super fast internet, you might as well not be in business.
Yeah.
And so why I think about, well, what would you do if somebody didn't want internet? I actually had this idea while riding on the train, because while I was told the trains had Wi-Fi, the first day of my trip to New York, the train did not have Wi-Fi, and I would later find out that a lot of the trains, while they have Wi-Fi, it's not all that reliable in certain parts of the country. So I noticed that a lot of people on the train were more talkative, more relaxed. You know, you didn't hear all the electronic noises that you hear from people that are constantly on their phones, because even the wireless access, you know, like using your phone's internet, there are a lot of parts of the U.S. on the train that doesn't work either. So that's where I got the idea that maybe somebody should start a no internet cafe. But I'm cool with the idea that you thought about doing a no internet lockdown where people would just focus on having conversations and solving problems. I think that's an amazing idea, and I think you need to try doing it again.
Well, I mean, I'll just ask you, how much do you think you could do? How much do you think you could get done if, I don't know what the nearest wilderness is to you, but if we went to, say, the Yorkshire Dales over here or that north of Scotland, and all you got was 4 or 5 bright people and unlimited paper and pencils and marker pens and all that, and that's all you've got. You could do loads. You could write headlines, you could write body copy, you could write book titles. Everybody could walk out with almost like the next 5 years mapped out, their book title and all their ads written and all. That's all you did all weekend. You just banged it and banged it and banged it, and you got nothing to do. You got no telly to watch. You got no distractions. You could get loads done. And that's funky thinking. That's respecting other people, viewpoints. Now we'd want to have an argument about it. We'd want to watch replays of arguments and people fighting, and that's normal kind of behaviour. But that would be the thing. We want this book. We could write the blurb out on the back, on the front, and all that stuff. And then all the technology is just to copy and paste. Just get somebody in Bangladesh or the Philippines to do that.
Yeah, or somebody in the U.S. even. We're starting to see more people.
Sorry, okay, you're into that, aren't you? Yes, sorry, yeah. I meant somebody else. Other workforces are available. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Obviously it's been done in some places before. Most people would probably think, with that smaller group, how would you make millions of dollars off of it? But I think you would really help a lot of people with that approach. And I think there's a certain number who would be willing to pay enough of a figure that you could make a healthy profit from it. And who knows, maybe you don't charge them on the front end. Maybe you charge them on a royalty on the income that they generate from the ideas they have during those 3 days.
I don't know. No, never thought about that. It would be the ticket price.
Yeah, you could go with a combination. You could have a lower ticket price with an agreement that they have to pay you a percentage of their gross for the next 12 months or something. Yeah, there are ways to make the money part of it work if the rest of the idea works at least. And look who I'm telling that to.
Well, it's only by kicking ideas around. We've almost done like a prism here, where we've just been kicking around ideas, and that don't work, and that works, and no, that's not right. We've almost done a mini prism here, and that's where ideas come from, because unless you are God or your mate Steve Jobs, any idea that you have is likely to be pretty lame. And certainly when you've done something like you've gone in the shower and took the dog out for a walk, you come back and think, oh, that's a shocking idea. But then, of course, you've jumped in and started doing stuff and setting all things going and all that, and you've been on Fiverr and ordered some logos and done that and all that. Before you've kind of almost reality checked it, and that's much better to spend the time and effort up front rather than further down the line. That's what I found.
Well, I believe you're right. And one of these days I'm going to get to be that kind of person, but I'm generally more the kind of person who, once he decides to do something, just starts doing small parts of it and seeing where that takes him next. But I do realize your way is much more efficient and probably better in the long run. It's just not how I'm used to doing things.
Well, to some extent, that again is funky thinking, because you could say, well, okay, I'll listen to all that, John. I'm going to my way is still the best way, or I might.
I'm not going to go that far.
Well, no, but you might pick. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. I'd never thought about doing it that way. Then we've helped each other, right? Just by that kind of verbal, the idea of a 36-hour webinar. Well, why would you do that? Because. So that's what I would say. You maybe not. You're not going to change what you do. You're not going to wake up and say, Jono, you're right, I'm wrong. It doesn't work like that, because we're far too precious, myself included. And I'm not saying that it goes without pain, because when we realise that, what we are doing is kind of a bit dorkish, and people point that out to us, then that can be a bit uncomfortable. But I'd rather, your best friend is somebody that's going to tell you when you're going to do something stupid, not how great you are.
Yeah, my one of my best friends online told me that if I were smart, I wouldn't have released my last book when I did. I would have waited 2 more months and worked with somebody different on the finishing part of the book, as far as the final editing and the promotion of it. But as I told her at the time, I've got a year and a half, almost 2 years in this book at this point, and I think I've waited as long as I can stand. You know, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
but I was willing to admit that she was probably right, and 6 months later, I'm willing to admit that she was probably right. But it's just one of those things. Sometimes you get to the point where you're like, if I don't do this now, I'm going to go crazy, and that was kind of where I was. But you're right. A best friend will tell you when you're about to do something that isn't in your best interest, even if it may make me mad at that person for a short period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. You know, if you're out in the street and you're about to get run over by a bus, you'd want your best friend to pull you out of the way, and you might break your arm or something, but that's better than being run over by a bus.
Yeah, we might have a conversation later about how my best friend let me out in the middle of the street in the first place, but or why they weren't standing there with me when it was over with. But you're right. You expect your best friend to look out for you. So look, we are getting close to the end of the time that I like to allot, because I don't like to take too much advantage of other people who are generous with their time with me. So what is one thing that you could say that might explain to people what funky thinking is, and make the case that we should all be funky thinkers?
Well, now see, that's the thing. Not everybody in the world will not be a funky thinker. That is a fact. And all I would say is go, and there's no pitch, there's no sell. Just go to funkythinkers.com and click on episodes and listen to one. Just pick one, and and if you get an insight or an idea, or it stops you doing something stupid, and it doesn't matter who it is, and it doesn't matter what they've said, if you go listen to an episode and you get something like that, a breakthrough, just send me a tweet at John Senior 1 and say, okay, just say you've done something, or you've learned something, or whatever it may be. And that there's, I don't know, there are 80 odd, 90 odd episodes. So just go pick a random one. There are people from the UK, US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, all around the world. So pick somebody outside of your culture or time zone, or somebody that you wouldn't normally have spoken to, right? So if you're in the North America, go find a New Zealander. If you're in the UK, go find somebody on the west coast of the US that we don't tend to speak to very often.
Yeah, that's about as strange as it gets, is the west coast of the US. So.
And that's all. That's all. And then just tell me, if you made a breakthrough, tell me.
Yeah, I like that. That's kind of like I tell people all the time. I don't mind people saying that I'm an inspiration, as long as they tell me what it was I inspired them to do.
I'm an inspirational speaker. Okay, inspire me. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it is kind of funny sometimes, but it is what a lot of people do, and what a lot of other people hire when they think they need help with stuff. So many great people in the profession, but a lot of it you are like motivational speaker, or inspirational speaker, inspirational life coach. So
I got a question for you. Why? What? Well, no, I'll park it because I know we're running for time. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying, what you were wanting to ask me a question?
No, I'll park it.
We're not on anybody else's time here. We don't have a hard limit. If it's something you wanted to get out, go ahead and get it, boss.
Well, no, my question to any business owner is, it's back to responsibility. Why does somebody need a motivational speaker? Why? I know. It's like having a shower. You go in, you still got the same old 2 arms and 2 legs, but they just feel different. I know that, but I just think that people with a business owner or a high-powered manager or whatever, they shouldn't really need any motivating. You shouldn't really need any. You need somebody to keep you on the straight and narrow. But if you desperately want somebody to kind of kick you up the backside and say, get on with it today, you're probably in the wrong kind of line of stuff.
Yeah, that kind of makes me think of people in professional sports, namely the U.S. version of football, where there's always a conversation. If you have to have a head coach give you a pregame pep talk, then why are you here? You know, you're a professional athlete, supposedly highly trained professional athlete. Why do you need other people to motivate you? You know, you're making millions of dollars, you're living a great lifestyle. Why do you need somebody to motivate you to show up and perform at your highest level on every given Sunday or Monday? And
exactly. Same thing, yeah.
And nobody ever comes up with a really good answer to that. But there are guys out there who have a world of talent that either don't live up to it or who don't live up to it, or if they do live up to it, it's only because they're constantly being pushed by a coach or a fellow athlete.
Yeah, same thing. Athlete, sports, any kind of sport. You know, if you talk to any kind of athlete in a high performing sport, they've got some kind of view on life that is different to the rest of us. You know, and they don't need any motivating or whatever the word is, whatever we want, because that he said they know, and they're often quite humble as well, because they know that one slip or crash or whatever, they're done. They're down the job centre because they're finished.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the difference. That's the difference with great athletes versus the weekend guys. The great athlete knows that his time to do what he does for a living is very limited.
Yeah. Yeah. How do we get to this? See, you just random. See, just random talking about stuff. If somebody's got an idea about that, then happy to.
Yeah, and it all starts with meeting people, saying hello, learning a little bit about them, and having a conversation over a coffee or a tea or a beer. And so I like what you said earlier in the show, that really people need to have more conversations, and hopefully we will hear more people having coffee or a cold beverage of their choice, and maybe sharing some of the things that they talked about or learned from each other this week or after they see this. I think that would be really cool.
That would be handy, yeah. If it's quite some kind of breakthrough. And I'm not talking about this kind of veiled thing like, hey, let's jump on a call and see if we've got anything in common. I'm not talking about something like that. Because that's selling into another guise. You know, hey, I've got this thing I want to sell you, so let's jump on a call. No, let's just kind of freeload for a bit and park our egos and all the rest of it at the side of the road.
Well, I appreciate you doing this with me, and I keep saying that if I were smart, I would just record everything, and before and after the actual show part of it is over with, because as you said earlier, a lot of times the best stuff happens before and after I press record. But unfortunately, I think a lot of guests would refuse to show up if I told them I was going to do that.
Yeah, if anybody's listening that's been on my show, I don't do that. And that's completely confidential. So I don't.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you, but I've often thought that that it would be maybe to record it but edit it out and offer the guest the option. I'm not sure, but but it's just one of those things. It's a touchy subject, so there's no way to really do it without creating problems you don't need. But I've often thought it'd be great if people could see the stuff that is shared after the record button goes off. So I want to thank you for spending the time with me, for doing it on such short notice, and for wanting to help me enough to go, Max, if you need me, just tell me when you can do this, and I'll find a spot in my diary, and we'll make it happen. So thank you so much for that, John. All righty. Now, okay, well, I've really enjoyed talking with Jonathan from funkythinkers.com. For some reason, I've been dropping the S, but the link will be there, so you'll be able to find him. And I really hope you do find him. I like what he asked you to do. Watch one episode. And he's pretty sure, and I agree with him, that you're probably going to have at least one aha moment. And when you do, tweet or send him a message somehow and go, hey, this is what I learned from this episode. So I'm looking forward to hearing the stories about those of you who decide to have conversations with each other, those of you who watch these podcast episodes and find something that really helps you a lot. And I guess the most important thing I'm getting from Jonathan is we have to focus more on people, thoughts, ideas, and conversation, and less on technology, cell phones, tablets, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. That we have to be real careful that we aren't connecting with people just as another way of selling them something, such as, like you said, jumping on a call. Because jumping on a call is like code for, I'm going to try to sell you something when we're through talking. It's become a phrase that lots of coaches and other consultants use. That's pretty much what it means. But I'm really refreshed by Jonathan. He always brings up at least one thing where I'm like, no, I wouldn't have thought about it that way before. And you did hear me admit to him that his way of thinking and planning and brainstorming probably does work better in the long run, but it's not my way of doing things. I'm a make 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 mistakes until I get there kind of a guy. And it works for me. So maybe that's another thing Jonathan taught me today, is we have to realize who we are as a person, how we get things done, and either take advantage of it or try to minimize the damages of it if there's a method that you are particularly fond of that isn't serving you right now. All right, I do appreciate Jonathan coming on the show, and I appreciate your time because I know y'all do have a lot of demands on your time. You don't have a lot of free time, and I know there's lots of other people you could be spending these minutes with, so I appreciate it. Until you can find me at theblindblogger.net, which is where you can hire me to get you booked on podcasts and radio shows so you can share your story and spread your work, your book, your podcast, whatever. And that's at theblindblogger.net. So until next time, thank you. God bless you, and take care out there. And there's bound to be rough waters, and I know I'll take some fall. But with the good Lord as my captain, I can make it through them all.